Procrastination is not a discipline problem. It's not about willpower, and it's not about being lazy. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. Somewhere in your body, the task got filed under danger, not unpleasant, not boring, danger. And your brain will fight to keep you away from danger every single time, even when the danger is a spreadsheet. So, if you ever sat down with the one thing you actually care about and felt like your whole body go heavy or suddenly desperate to do literally anything else instead, this is for you. What's happening underneath is more specific than you think, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's start here. The amygdala, that small almond-shaped structure sitting deep into your brain, cannot tell the difference between a real threat and an emotional one. A tiger in the grass and an email you are dreading register the same way to it. Both get flagged as danger. Both trigger the same response. And when that response fires, the prefrontal cortex, the part of you responsible for planning and focus and follow through, goes quiet. You are not choosing to avoid the task. Access to the part of your brain that could do the task has been shut off. Then there is the freeze. Somewhere between fight and flight, when neither is available, the body picks a third option: shut down. This is the polyvagal freeze response, and everyone around you sees something ordinary. They see brain fog, sudden exhaustion that arrives out of nowhere, an hour you can't account for, a task you were fully capable of yesterday and cannot access today. That is not laziness. That is your brain pulling an emergency brake it never once consulted you about. There is a name for the space where none of this happens, where you can think, feel, and act all at the same time without one of them shutting down. It's called your window of tolerance, and certain tasks push you straight outside it, not because the task itself is hard, because it's wired to old pain, old shame, an old failure that has got nothing to do with today. You can't think your way back inside that window. It has to be widened slowly, the same way it narrowed one safe experience at a time. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Avoidance feels good. Walking away from the task releases something. The stress drops. For a moment, you feel relief. That relief is dopamine. It's real, and it's exactly why the pattern repeats. You are not failing at motivation in that exact moment. Avoidance works. But none of that explains why this task, and not another. Why you can write a grand proposal for someone else without blinking, but freeze the second it's your own dream on the page. For that, you have to go back. If as a child, your struggles were met with silence, if being overwhelmed with homework or friendship or fear was something you were expected to just manage, you learned something long before you had language for it. You learned, I am alone in this. Nobody's coming. And when a child learns that difficulty means aloneness, difficulty itself becomes unbearable, not the task. The isolation the task threatens you to reopen. This is childhood emotional neglect, and it rarely looks like a wound. It looks like a house where nothing was technically wrong, but no one sat with you in the hard feelings. No one modeled how to stay regulated when something felt like too much. So, that skill, the ability to sit inside discomfort without collapsing, was never built. There is no studying inner voice because no one gave you one to borrow. And then there is the second wound, and it hides in plain sight. If love in your house had conditions, if you were celebrated when you achieved and met with disappointment or silence when you didn't, worth and output got soldered together, and once that happens, every task stops being a task. It becomes a referendum on whether you're allowed to be loved. Finishing it means it can be judged, and if it can be judged, it can fail, and if it fails, you fail. So the unfinished thing becomes the safest thing. As long as it's still in progress, it's still perfect. Procrastination isn't blocking the work. It's protecting you from the verdict. And the third wound is even quieter. If you grew up somewhere your choices weren't really yours, where your no didn't hold, where your time and your feelings were managed for you, you found the one form of power still available. You couldn't refuse out loud, so you slowed down instead. You dragged your feet. Nobody could punish a delayed the way they could punish a rebellion. That child grew up, and that same quiet weapon, the drag, the delay, is still active, except now it's aimed at you. You are unconsciously reclaiming a sovereignty you were never allowed to have, using the only tool you were ever given to hold it. That's a fourth possibility, and it's worth sitting with honesty. Sometimes the delay has nothing to do with fear at all. Sometimes it's the truest part of you refusing to spend its energy building a life that belongs to a performed version of you rather than the real one. A career path chosen to please someone. A version of success borrowed from a family script you never actually agreed to. The deeper self does not show up to build what it does not believe in. No productivity system on earth can talk it into pretending otherwise. So, before you write another to-do list, sit with something harder. When you picture actually doing the thing you keep avoiding, what's the very first feeling that shows up? Is it dread? A kind of blankness? A tightness in your chest that has nothing to do with logic? And when you imagine finishing it, putting it into the world where it can be seen, what's underneath that fear? Not the sensible version, the old one. Sometimes, if you're honest, the resistance isn't fear at all. Sometimes it's information. Sometimes the part of you refusing to move is refusing to build a life that was never actually yours to begin with. No amount of forcing will make the particular refusal go away because it's not broken. It's just accurate. Very much accurate. So, here is the only question worth ending on. If the part of you that keeps you stuck had a voice, what do you think it's actually trying to protect you from? Not from failure, not really, from aloneness, the once followed struggle, from the verdict that once followed being seen, from a control you once had no defense against, except to slow everything down. That part of you was never the enemy. It built a shield out of the only materials a child had access to, and it has been standing guard ever since, waiting for someone to finally notice it was there. You just did. That doesn't make the task easier tomorrow, but it changes what you're arguing with when you sit down to try. You're not arguing with laziness. You are in a negotiation with a much younger part of yourself, and negotiations, unlike willpower, actually work because they start with being heard.